So one aspect of life that I think is going to change going into the future post-COVID-19, Jason, is the way we watch movies and the way we entertain ourselves, be it in theaters or at home. I'm Jason Cipriani with Jason Perlow, and that's what we're going to talk about today is the future of Hollywood, movies, and TV series. So Jason, I know you're a big fan of going to theaters pre-COVID and all of that. What was it like for you as far as what were your habits as far as going to the movies? And
So my wife and I were Regal Unlimited members, right? So that's when you pay $20 a month, and you get each person pays $20 a month, and they get unlimited viewing of any movies in any Regal movie theater, right? So there's 20 movies out a month. You get to watch all 20 movies for $20 a month, provided you go, every night. And you can't see like 2-3 of them are the same. You can't see it twice in a row if you wanted to, but you could,
sure.
So it would be fairly possible to watch all the movies in a month if you went every other night. So we would probably go to the movies, I guess, 2 or 3 times a week, depending. We might go to an early show at 5:36 or something, or we go to a late show. We had a great time with it. Love the reclining seats, the reclining bucket seats, and the whole business.
Sure.
Nice sound systems, things like that. Nice air conditioning systems. We love the experience, the in theater experience for all that. But because of the virus, all those movie theaters have been closed, and we haven't been able to go. So we have more or less moved toward just watching everything at home, and that's. But we really have not moved towards. What has there been to watch as far as first run content? Really, there hasn't been a heck of a lot, even if you wanted to pay for it, so to speak. So.
Right. Yeah. So before all of this, I shouldn't say never. We rarely go to the movie theater. Family of 5, it's over $100.
Yeah.
By the time you buy popcorn and drinks and candy and all of that, even if you sneak some stuff in, it still is expensive to pay for 5 people to go. So really our exposure to movie theaters was once, maybe twice a year, big names releases like Star Wars, we would go. Other than that, we would wait for it to come out, or we wait for it to come out on streaming services and watch it there. And that's exactly what our habits have been during self-isolation and the stay-at-home orders and all of that. Is we're still watching the same amount of movies we normally did months after their initial release, but through streaming services, whether it's Apple TV or Disney Plus. What was it? Frozen 2 was released on there early. We recently watched the new Trolls World Tour, which was one of the first movies to be released direct to consumer during all of this, which was a huge success for them. But at $20 for a 48-hour rental, it's a little pricey still. Granted, it's not the cost of going to a movie theater, but $20 for 48-hour rental is not cheap. So what do you think it's going to be like as things go back to normal, Jason?
Well, obviously there's going to be a lull in content, right? Because movies have had to stop shooting. Even television has had to stop early shooting of their seasons. So when we run out of new episodes sometime in 2020, that could be an early end to the television season.
Right.
And there could be delays while these seasons, these production companies re-ramp up and start up again and have stuff to watch. Now, part of that is due to the fact that whenever you have any kind of live production, when you have actors that need to be on sets and sets have to be built, and there's logistics has to take place, especially if it's on site in a city or in a shooting location that's recognizable, right? There's a lot of stuff that has to take place. When you have these type of quarantine orders and stay in place and all these social distancing things going on, it's going to be logistically very difficult to shoot those types of movies.
Yeah.
Now, there will be, of course, I think, if you take a look at what Disney did with Mandalorian, they shot everything in front of a green screen. They also had a lot of fantasy characters, monsters and creatures and things like that, sci-fi looking stuff, right? Which is a lot of that's going to happen inside the computer. Even the characters are going to be manipulated inside the computer. So it's easy I think those types of films will be easier to crank out. They'll have to figure out the voice recording aspects and how to keep that high quality whenever you add that audio track. But those things can be dealt with, right? It's the on-site execution and filming is going to be the hardest part for these companies to deal with.
Yeah, from what I understand, The Mandalorian was actually, they used some green screen stuff. Obviously, everyone does now, but they actually had giant LED screens that
Yeah.
the cast stood in front of, and you know, the background was the world that they were in behind them, and they made it look really realistic, and it came out really well. I still need to watch the behind the scenes series that they published on May 4th. I haven't sat down and watched that yet, but I think you're right. I think a lot of the on-set filming will be done, you know, CGI, whether it's in front of an actual screen or a green screen. It just, at least for the foreseeable future. As far as a lull in content, that has to be coming sooner than later, right? Like, for example, my wife and I just finished the Mayans Motorcycle Club. We finished catching up on the first 2 seasons of that. So immediately I looked to see when season 3 was coming out. It's supposed to be fall of this year. I don't know anything about timing of filming, you know, post-production, all that stuff. I don't follow it too much, so I don't know, but I would imagine they were probably filming season 3 right now, or at least starting to film it or getting ready to film it. It's hard to think that this fall we'll actually have season 3 of the Mayans Motorcycle Club series because of the delays here. Do you know more about, you know, the timing and the length of what goes into post-production and all of that?
You know, it really depends where some of these where in what countries and what states these things were shot, and how much of this was shot, how long ago some of the like what we call the A roll versus the B rolls, you know, of these things when they're shot, right? I mean, typically, you know, if you look at, like, you know, these series like, you know, Westworld, right? A lot of that was shot on location in Singapore because the entire city was effectively used as the backdrop for, you know, the future of Los Angeles in, you know, 100 years from now or something like that. So those types of things have to be arranged ahead of time, you know, if you're gonna take over streets and stuff like that. I don't know how the heck that could possibly occur right now if they wanted to film another season of that. So, you know, indoor things maybe. Again, you know, I don't know how labor laws and stuff and contracting with actors and stuff have to work with them being in close quarters with people who film and stuff. There's a lot of stuff that you have to think about when you're putting together a television or a movie production. I'm wondering about some of the really big films that were shot with principal photography, like Dune is supposed to be out in December of 2020. So I know if they finish principal, I don't know if they're finishing up you know, secondary effects and things like that right now, which might potentially delay the release. Who knows? But there's lots of films that were in production when this thing hit. So,
Yeah,
I mean, who knows
yeah,
what's gonna happen?
and the delays, and it's going to be quite a bit, I would imagine. You know, one thing, just this week I watched on Food Network, Amy Schumer Learns to Cook. I don't remember the exact title of it, but it's a series on Food Network now that her and her husband and their nanny have filmed at home with a couple of cameras, and it's completely raw, and like, it doesn't have the production value of what you would expect from any television show, especially Food Network, but it was very realistic and also personal. You know, part of me hopes that we see more content like that during the lull, you know, and as things trickle down, we see rushed series. I mean, they haven't had long to make and film this and you know, edit it and everything else. And it's, like I said, it's very raw. And so part of me hopes that we see more series like that, kind of get back to what reality.
And I agree. Part of it is also the techniques, right? Because we know GoPros and even iPhone cameras have very high quality. As long as, I mean, there's lighting issues that have to be dealt with. There's other things.
The lighting's horrible. The lighting on it is absolutely horrible. Especially
lighting is an issue that you know, you need for studios to get what you want, right? But the actual camera quality of the iPhone, you know, 11 Pro is fantastic. You know,
yeah,
I mean,
speaking
the
of
regular iPhone 11 does a great job. Even the SE does a great job with its camera. So
Apple just, you know, sent me a press release this week that American Idol in order to finish the season, they sent every cast member, every contestant, 3 iPhone 11 Pros and a microphone and a ring light, and that's how they're filming the rest of the season with these various cameras.
Yeah, I mean,
They
you'd
help
be
them set them
surprised
up.
what you can do with a nice mic and a nice ring light, and good editing and stuff. I mean, if you take a look at what how SNL was when they had to do their first COVID episode
Yeah,
versus the ones they've done since,
they
they've
look
done a
so
much
much
better
better.
jobs with the
Yeah.
ones since than they have the first one. And I think they just got the production logistics figured out. How to get people the right types of equipment and how to tell people how to set up equipment and stuff is really, I think, half of the battle with this stuff.
Yeah,
Especially
absolutely.
So yeah, I mean, so I think we might get some interesting new content. I think the real battle is going to be in the distribution of this content, right?
Exactly.
So if we're not going to have movie theaters, how are we going to watch first run movies and how are they going to get out to the channel, right? So if you think about the current Hollywood system, right, you have studios, right, that have infrastructure. They've got places to film in large indoor areas. They got mobile crews to go out and film things with cameras. They have art departments. They have all those things, and costumes and stuff. And then of course you've got production companies that they contract and hire to actually go out and do this stuff, right? And then you have all the marketing stuff, right? But then you have the distribution, right? And it used to be that movie theaters, presumably hopefully we're still going to have them, but like AMC and Regal, they have
Right.
all these theaters you go out to and you go watch movies, right? And a lot of that, the cost of running that film came from selling popcorn and sodas and candies and things like that. That's how they would make most of their money, is on concessions. So if we're not going to have movie theaters, if they're not going to continue to make money, then we're going to need to have to distribute them directly to streaming, right? Now, if we think about what streaming networks are those going to end up on, right? Because their first run, they got to be paid for somehow, right?
Yeah.
So I don't see first run going direct to HBO or direct to Netflix, or these are going to have to be ending up on a streaming service where you're paying a premium to watch these in some way. And what's the business model going to be? Are you going to pay per, like on Apple Movies, or it's like Disney? Is the Disney Plus channel going to have a special, pay $5 or $10 extra to watch this on top of your subscription, or are they going to charge more for a super premium version of Disney Plus specifically to watch all their films?
So I think we already kind of have part of that answer, and that is based off of the Trolls World Tour release, where AMC and Universal got in this news argument with statements from each CEO, with Universal touting how successful this was for them to release Trolls straight to consumers, $20 for a 48-hour rental across all of the services, and saying that it proves that the new business model will work even after things return to normal, meaning that they were going to look at potentially releasing in theaters and at home, or just at home in some cases going forward. And AMC came out immediately and said, if that is the case, we will never carry another movie of yours again. You need to come to us first and then go to direct.
Well, the theater system clearly feels very threatened.
Yeah, absolutely. It destroys everything that they have. It destroys their revenue. But I think eventually that's what we're going to see. But you have a lot of questions to answer there for the studios. And in that, if you rent a movie from Apple, Apple takes a cut of that revenue, and the theater doesn't get it, or the studio doesn't get it themselves. So, 100% of that. So are we going to see a Universal app, whatever other studio? Are we going to see direct apps to rent from? And then eventually it goes out to all the other networks, or, how is that going to work going forward? I would think that they'll take kind of the similar approach that Disney did with Frozen 2. And that was, they released it to buy, and then 2 weeks later it was made free on Disney Plus. So if you wanted early access, you could buy it for $20 or whatever it was, or you could wait a couple extra weeks and you'll get it as part of your Disney Plus subscription, which I think works. They made a ton of money selling it, and I'm sure cause a few people to sign up for
I
Disney
think for
Plus?
something like Frozen, yeah, we have a huge blockbuster. But think
Right.
about all the movies that come out of the studio system. Not everybody's going to want to do that for every single film that runs out. So there's going to need to be some type
Right.
of eat all you can type of service to get the revenue out for as an aggregate, right? You know, for across the studio's properties and
Yeah.
releases.
So like a subscription to Universal Studios, but
Potentially, yes.
not the theme park, but the actual movie releases.
Yeah,
Yeah.
potentially, yes. I see that happening.
All right. So
Um,
one last question for you. After all of this, are you going to start going back to movie theaters? I know you said you probably want to do your Regal subscription again, but do you ever see yourself going back?
I need to see a cure or a viable treatment
Yeah.
before I go into large public spaces like that.
Yeah, I agree. Even with social distancing practices, you know, how many ever seats away. Part of the experience for me going to theaters is with my family, and that's the only time I go, is it's a social thing. Yes, we're in the theater and we're not talking, but we're all sharing the experience together. And if we're 3 seats away from each other the entire time, that's not a fun experience, right? It's
I
like,
don't know if I want to wear a mask while watching a movie either. That's
yeah,
just
how are you going to eat your popcorn?
how you gonna eat your popcorn, but also it's uncomfortable to
Yeah.
do it for extended periods of time. I wear a mask every time I go out in public, and I can tell you, just standing around anywhere for 5-10 minutes, breathing in with one of those things is not fun.
Yeah, I agree with you. Fogging up my glasses, trying to talk to someone every time you breathe. It's not a fun experience. So sitting there for a couple hours in a theater, it would be the same experience, if not worse, because you're watching a movie.
The other side of this, which I think is going to be interesting, is if we're not going to go into theaters and we're going to be using our homes, what kind of investments can we expect people to put in their home theater systems? I mean, right now, I have a Beam, a Sonos Beam. I got a couple of Play 3s acting as surround sounds. It works pretty good. I was looking into potentially putting a sub in there, but that's another $700 or something like that. But the question is, what is the audio production values for movies in the future going to be optimized for what a typical home theater system is versus these big bad THX sound systems that we had, and
Right.
also the video reproduction. You cannot expect, even with people with really good internet, right, to be able to stream 100, full quad HD, 4K quality on a home broadband and television setup. It's just not going to be the same uncompressed full experience that you would have gotten in a movie theater. My question is to how much effort are they going to be putting back into these types of shows? Are we going to see a degradation in quality, or
Right.
you know,
Yeah, I mean, I think that's a good question, but it also, the flip side of that is, are people going to start upgrading their home theater systems in order to make up for not going to movie theaters itself? Sonos, you mentioned the Beam. I have one as well. It's great. They just announced the Arc, though, that has Dolby
yeah,
Atmos, which is their first Dolby Atmos speaker. It's designed for 65 or 75-inch TVs. I think the Arc length is like 45 inches or something. It's
yeah,
a
it
huge
replaces the
soundbar.
play bar that I bought a couple years ago over there, and that model was around for a very long time.
Yeah.
So I had thought about replacing it with the Arc, but that was like last year. I was hoping there was a new play bar on, there wasn't. So I ended up replacing it with a Beam, which is much smaller. But it works pretty good. For most television and movie content, it's just that it doesn't have that really hard, built-in stronger driver sounds that you expect out of a loudspeaker system like that.
Yeah, absolutely. So I've been testing a 65-inch Vizio 4K TV. It's tremendous. We had a normal 55-inch Fire TV edition from Toshiba, which it looked fine, but the difference in picture quality is stunning. And I can definitely see the desire, once I'm able to hear a true surround sound system on it, to just leave it in place and upgrade everything to get the best viewing experience at home. But to your point, yeah, will we see lower quality work out of the studios? I don't know. I think there'll be optimization for a new distribution channel. But
Yeah, well, you're going to need beefed up edge networks. to
Yeah.
be able to, I mean, so maybe we'll see some more investments at the edge due to this potentially.
Well, any closing thoughts, Jason?
No, I mean, you know what? I'm a movie guy. I mean, in fact, I love movies more than I like television, right? You
Okay.
know, I like to sit back on a long form 2-hour film and just escape,
Sure.
you know? So, but I did love the experience of going out and being with my wife and lying back on these great recliners and just chilling out, you know, in the dark. And so I've been trying to replicate that at home, and it's not quite the same. You know, I do like the fact I can stop a movie, I can watch closed captions and all those things. But like I said, it's a different experience. I'm just curious as what is going to happen with the quality of our content, the frequency of the content. You know, when we used to expect these TV seasons, you know, on a cadence, right?
Yeah.
Now potentially we could see television series, you know, 2 years between releases and stuff, you know, like more like what happened with Game of Thrones.
Right.
So the more complicated, the more elaborate, the more level of effort, more heavy lifting they're going to have to do, especially with all the new requirements, you know, that they're going to be in play after all this. So it's a brand new world for television and film, that's for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. Like I said at the beginning, I don't go to movie theaters that often, but when I do, it's for big releases like Star Wars. And usually that means I take my nieces and my nephew with me, and we all watch Star Wars and enjoy that experience together. It's something we look forward to every time there's a new release date, something we talk about for months on end. Hopefully by then, by the next major release, we'll have something to look forward to and be able to enjoy that experience together. Otherwise, we'll have to figure out a way to do it at home, whether that means buying a projector and putting it on the side of the house and making the best of it outside. I don't know. I don't know what that looks like. It'll be an interesting world, as you said, once all of this starts to ramp down and, you know, there's a vaccine or a cure or a treatment. But it'll be interesting to see where we go from here. All right. I'm Jason Cipriani.
And I'm Jason Perlow.
This is Jason Squared. Make sure to check out more of our work at zdnet.com.